All right, what's up, everybody? As I mentioned, I am very excited to have my next guest here. You know her from the number one movie in America right now, ladies and gentlemen, is Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania. And if you watch my shows enough, you know how much I talk about The Mandalorian. You know that it is, to me, the best Star Wars type material since the original trilogy. It is just incredible. So that's why I'm excited to talk to my next guest, who is in both of those things. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Katy O'Brian.
Hi.
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. It's nice to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. It's fun.
I was telling you off air that I had taken my daughter to see Ant-Man and the Wasp Quantumania, and it was funny because she had said to me, as I mentioned to you, she's like, "Dad, it's like this is a Star Wars movie inside of a Marvel movie," and it had that feeling. Who directed the episodes that you were on for Mandalorian? Because it ties into the Marvel for me.
Yeah, I had. The last two that I was in were Peyton.
Right.
Yeah. So he directed Ant-Man as well.
So that's why. So what was? Did you get a chance to, when you're talking to him a lot? Is that what kind of opened up the door here for? I mean, obviously you have the relationship from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and then working on Mandalorian in general. And then how does that come about on the set of Mandalorian? The relationship with Peyton.
Oh, actually, it was just the last episode. Now that he was sorry. I don't want to take other people's credit away.
Yeah.
So it's so funny because I felt like, I had the simplest lines in the world on Mandalorian. It was like, well, maybe not simple, like stay clear of launch tube, deploying fighter squadron, and that that's a tongue twister for me. And I just couldn't do it. Couldn't get it out for whatever reason. Kept tripping over my tongue. All of that. And Peyton was so sweet, so patient, so encouraging. But I thought, I will never work for this man again. There's no way he's going to hire me again. When I found out I was on Ant-Man and that Peyton wanted me, and Peyton wanted me back under his direction, I was blown away.
But when that happens, though, too, is that a lot of conversations that are happening, between takes? Is it just a relationship that you establish with him? Because from a lot of your roles, from what I've heard, is that they're roles that start off with, okay, you got the role because we liked the audition, but then they're extended. Mm-hmm. And because it's obviously in the performance, but it's obviously the personality as well, too. So what are the conversations like offset?
Mm. It's obviously this is all a collaboration. So, it's making sure that, hey, this is what I think the scene is about. Want to make sure that you agree, but then it's also understanding that everyone on set is important and that you as the actor aren't the only person that matters. And so I love to just and maybe I'm bothering them, I don't know, but I love to go around and chat with everybody. And
clearly it's working.
Well, I don't know. I just love it because when you, especially on a show like Mandalorian where it's going multiple seasons or, it branches out, they use a lot of the same people for Ahsoka, a lot of the same people for Andor. It's like a family.
Yeah.
And you see that, you feel that on set. And if you aren't connecting with that family, then it just doesn't, it's kind of hard to stay on, I think.
Yeah. And it's also, it's got to be, maybe it's not intimidating. I know, but for me, as I think about it, with joining Ant-Man and Quantumania in the third film, radically different as far as tone in the first two, but joining a cast that's been together. I guess it's in television. Sometimes you join a cast in the third, fourth season, whatever it might be, and you got to. So what is that like, though? Because you have this relationship with Peyton, and you come in, and here's this crew that's been the actors that have been working together. Are they pretty inviting? Do you have to kind of break in and say, "Hey guys, it's because it's a major role"? And what is that like working with this cast?
It is always a strange thing when you come in because you're like, oh, I don't know how other people work. I don't know if they want to be talked to. Yeah. I don't know, are you allowed to look at them? What are their weird rules? But for this one right away, everyone was just kind of joking around and they make you feel welcome. I think a lot of people understand that okay, this is the newbie that's on set. Let's bring her into the conversation.
Yeah.
And that was always really important. And Peyton also, it starts from the top, and he's just such a bright, happy personality. If he is stressed, I not once felt it.
Really?
And that's it's a huge production. Yeah. And I'm sure they're getting notes from all sides, whatever. And he's just like, "Hey, Katy, how's it going?" Always takes a time to chat with you, takes time to, really listen.
Yeah.
And talk you up to other people or whatever. I mean, it does make you feel welcome, makes you feel like you belong there, which is like a huge, everybody has imposter syndrome, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it makes you realize, everybody's just like normal people here.
Yeah, and it's because there's, like, as you said, there's a lot of pressure when it comes to the Marvel Cinematic Universe in general with the amount of films that they've done, and it's ultimately like a big television show with everything. The one thing that I found really impressive was that what you don't see normally, very rare, are people inside of, whether it's the universe or even a side universe, being in Marvel, like for Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and now a different role. You don't see that often. So was that ever discussed? Like, well, she was already in that, she can't be in that. Does that ever come up ever? It's like, no.
I mean, if anybody behind the scenes brought it up, I don't think they obviously didn't make it a big deal. I think there was a point where they kind of decided that the MCU was separate from what Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. was doing. But then also, and I'm trying to think, I feel like I've seen this happen with other actors before, where, they're in one, maybe like a smaller role or something, and they're like, no, we like you.
David plays two roles.
Yeah, come on.
Yeah, David Dastmalchian.
David's two completely different characters.
100%. And I know that you guys had a good relationship on set, and that was kind of my next question, was that because he was somebody that played a different role inside of it. Even though he'd been around it, and he's so, I mean, whether it's DC or I mean, exactly, he was in something, whether you look at something like The Dark Knight, and then he's in,
Yes, he's done it more than once.
That's right, right. And then he's in the Suicide Squad. So when you're talking to him and having that relationship, does he give any advice, or does he, lend some of his experience to you about working in these types of movies while you guys are on set?
Yeah, it's funny. David's like, he's so humble. He doesn't really talk much about, like, I assume if there was something I had to ask him, he would answer.
Yeah.
But in terms of just unsolicited advice, no, I never got any of that, which is great. I feel like that's like a good character trait.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, certainly if I felt like I was confused about something or whatever, I could look at him. What I just really, especially seeing him as his previous character in Ant-Man, the way that he was able to take Veb and completely transform himself, and like wasn't worried about embarrassing himself or anyone making fun of him or anything. Like, he went all out, and it paid off. I thought he was one of my favorite characters.
He was pretty funny in the movie for sure, and I love David. He's just a really, as you said, a humble, really good guy. And it seems like that was the experience for you guys in general, filming with all the, what did MODOK look like on set?
Oh yeah. So sometimes he just wasn't there.
Yeah.
They had like a big white cutout sometimes that they would bring on, like, roll in.
Yeah.
And then I don't think I was there on the days that they had a body double in, like, behind the thing, rolling it around. It's like there was a lot going on. So they had like a few different types of MODOK, but yeah, I kind of got to see what he looked like.
Yeah, I always look at like the way that the old prequels of the Star Wars were shot, and I always still, when you have the volume now, that I think it makes it easier, at least I would assume, than just the blue screen, the green screen, but it's still got to be a little tough.
The volume is really limiting because you can only shoot a certain POV. Like, so there's, all of this wall might be volume, and then behind you is a big chunk of open space. Yeah. So you have to be really creative with how you use that space because it is very limiting. And then like walk and talk scenes and volume, things like that are really, really difficult because you have to kind of like walk, reset, start over, continue your conversation, reset, start over. It's super challenging. So in some ways it's limiting, but in other ways I think, especially maybe after the fact, and I'm definitely not a VFX person or anything, so I might be speaking way out of my head on this, but the blue screen, everything has to be added.
Right.
Afterwards. So you have to create the world in your head. You have no idea what it's going to be like, and
that's what I mean. That's why it's tougher. So for Mandalorian, when you shot, because I know they did a lot of the volume for Mandalorian, but I know that also from where you were shooting, was it a lot of set stuff also? Yeah.
So in the spaceship,
it
is it's mostly practical. We had a lot of, they were playing with, handing me, I was playing with these like original pieces, and they're trying to like have me walk around with them and fit them in, and sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. So as much as they can have tactile there, they do, and, especially when you're pushing buttons and stuff. They did use blue screen for a lot of that's on the spaceship, that kind of thing. I think when they're using the volume, it's mostly for we're out in the world, massive world building stuff.
So with Mandalorian season 3, I know there's only so much you can talk about with it coming up, and we're right around the corner from the show in general. Yeah, I think that, as we said, with the roles that you've had in the past, whether it's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and a countless amount of your roles where the role has expanded, is that similar to what we have going on here in Mandalorian as well too? Because I know you showed up in with that season, you had a lot of it's an impact that you have, like you're noticeable with the things that you're doing, and I think that's obviously what Peyton and other people have said, hey, we want you to do more.
Right? Yeah. I don't know. I think people just have to watch this season, see what they think.
Good.
Yeah.
Perfect. And then I think that when it comes to this role in Ant-Man, going back to that, I wanted to know the relationship with you and Cassie, because that really is, there's so much because it reminded me of there was an Avatar 2 feel to me as well. And into this world that these fighters are so used to protecting their own, doing their thing, and the outsiders come in, and you have to have that relationship in order to, I guess, work together and bond, right? But it's really this relationship that you have with Cassie that I think is the ultimate, that without that there's no help at the end.
Yeah, I think, with Scott Ant-Man, he's willing to just okay, you don't want us, we're out.
Yeah.
Which is fair. And then on the other side of things, Janet kind of knows what's going on. She knows her responsibility, what she has to do, how she has to kind of resolve the situation. She left us high and dry.
Yeah.
And in order for us to work together, it had to be this person who came in maybe not necessarily understanding the consequences of her actions. She had to learn those consequences, apologize, and then ask me what was needed, as opposed to saying, I'm going to help you.
Right.
And yeah, that was something, the scene where she frees me from prison, I think is one of the first scenes that we actually shot together. I think that was one of the first days, or the first day I showed up on set. And that's kind of when we realized that the Cassie Jentorra relationship was going to be a little bit more important than Jentorra's vendetta against Janet, or whatever that situation was.
Well, you had said there was a ton of rewrites inside of that was always changing. Did that actually? So at what point was it always that relationship, or was there more? Because it seemed like, to me, one of the things that I wanted to see more of was Janet's redemption interview, because they set it up that she feels kind of bad about it, and I think that towards the end she still does stuff, but it wasn't that arc, because you mentioned it. You say it once you find out that she's there, it's like, well, wait a minute, Janet's here?
Yeah.
There's more to Janet. And I thought we were going to explore that a little bit more. Was that originally in there?
No, and I'm like, what are we doing? And I think, when I was talking to Peyton too, I think Michelle was asking the same questions, like, are we going to ever meet up or chat? And they kept trying, and finally there was just too much going on.
Yeah.
I don't envy them for having to piece this movie together, because it's two completely separate situations happening in the same movie with a whole new world, lots of different characters. We're world building, we're adding plot, we're adding the next phase. We've got it was just chaos. So I don't envy them at all. I think, what we were able to piece together story-wise still makes the arc work, still makes the story work. And then I think that at the end, by thanking Cassie, I'm also forgiving Janet.
Yeah.
So we kind of just have to play it by ear. Maybe one day, hopefully, maybe they'll write in a scene where I get to say hi to Janet. I just wanted to act with Michelle Pfeiffer. That's all I wanted.
I know, and and also, look, one of the things that Marvel does very well is they introduce us in bigger roles to newer talent, right? And so when you were out there, and I was like, that's a new role that I didn't know was coming. And obviously Jonathan Majors. So they introduced us to these two rising stars. So it was like a nice thing to do in general. I'm telling you, my daughter, when I told her that you were coming in today, she was just like, oh, she was the one who kicked ass. I was like, yeah, she was the one who kicked ass. And Jonathan Majors also, was there a lot of stuff that you got to do with him and like knowing that there's just something, I mean, again, it's catching your eye. Like we mentioned with you, what you did. There's a special talent of being able to take a role and then have someone say to you, come back. And it seems that's what both you guys did. So, I don't know. Is this something? How was your relationship with him on set?
I mean, I pretty much, again, you're kind of sussing out how other actors work and everything. And I said to Jonathan straight up, I was like, look, man, you look like you like to be in it the whole time. So I'm just going to kind of leave you alone. And he said, thank you. So it was cool to watch him work. It was the physicality that he brought was beautiful to watch. The emotion that he brought, the seriousness that he brought to the role, all of that was really, really great. And in a way, that weird sense, like, don't get me wrong, Offset, we chatted. He's awesome. He's a lovely guy.
Sure.
But it felt right on set to have a little bit of separation. Yeah. Because he's my arch enemy. Like, he's the problem in my mind.
Yeah, you don't want to have like a great relationship with him.
Yeah, it makes it easy to. I mean, and also, it's intimidating. Yeah. To separate yourself from somebody, and it's intimidating. He comes in with his boombox and he's like blaring music and he like screams when he comes on set.
That's great.
So you got to be intimidated by Katy. Yeah. You have to be. So I kind of liked that as a separation for us, and I think it helped feed into the intensity of what we were going for. I don't know how much, I don't watch takes or anything. I don't like to see myself on camera.
Yeah, same with him. So did you watch the actual the film when it was at one premiere? You did. Okay.
I do, because my philosophy is like it's not about me. I want to see what they came up with. I want to see I want to see the background. I want to see everything. I love that. I don't know if I'll watch it again. Yeah. My friends dragged me to it again, and I just the whole time I'm like, every time I'm on screen, I'm like, I hate it.
Yeah, it's amazing how many people. I mean, he says the same thing. There's so many people that don't like to watch themselves.
Yeah, I mean, it's fair. You ever like? I think there's like a psychological thing to it too. And I recently saw this guy giving kind of the explanation. But when you hear your own voice, it doesn't sound like what you think you sound.
Of course,
like. And you're like, ugh, that's me. And it's kind of the same seeing yourself. I understand. You're like, oh, God, that's me. Ugh.
Well, we hope to see a lot more of you. And I think that we will. So Mandalorian Season 3, it's right around the corner. Ant-Man and the Wasp is out now, ladies and gentlemen. Katy, thank you so much for joining us. And I hope to see you again.
Yeah. It's been great.
All right. Back to me.